Imagine you are looking at a brand new, like globally praised constitution.
Right, the kind of thing that makes international headlines.
Exactly. The ink is, it's barely even dry. And the entire world is applauding this monumental step forward for the country.
It's supposed to be this completely new era of freedom.
Yeah. But then the government that just signed it, the very people sworn to uphold this, this new era,
Right.
they are still using laws written by their former colonial oppressors just to lock up the opposition.
It's a massive contradiction.
It really is. So today, we are looking at how a nation's foundational rule book can actually be legally weaponized against it.
And, well, how a society deals with that.
Right. And more importantly, how you actually hit the reset button when the system itself is just, totally rigged. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Me too. We are jumping straight into a massive, complex, and honestly, quite cryptic source today.
It's a dense one for sure.
Yeah, it's the transcript of YouTube video titled Takarasika Papisanyika Miono Uriset Zimbabwe.
Uploaded by the Channel Champions Network TV.
Exactly. And we're going to use this, sweeping monologue to decode Zimbabwe's political history. We're going to examine some stark failures of governance and ultimately find the hope.
The path forward, basically.
Right, the path forward that's embedded in this idea of a national reset.
Yeah.
And our final destination, using all of this to understand the existential threat of Constitutional Amendment Bill 3.
But before we go any further, I think it is crucial to establish our parameters for this analysis.
Oh, absolutely. Good point.
Because the source material we are unpacking today is a raw, deeply passionate political text. It's not a neutral academic paper.
No, not at all. It is very fired up.
Right. It contains very strong viewpoints from its author. It discusses controversial historical events, active political movements like the MDC.
Which is the Movement for Democratic Change, right?
Yeah.
The primary opposition party.
Exactly. And it names specific modern political figures. So our objective today is strictly analytical.
We're just here to break it down.
Precisely. We are here to deconstruct the arguments, the legal theories, and the historical through lines presented in the text. We are not taking sides.
Right. We aren't endorsing any specific political party or ideology here.
No. We are simply looking at the structural mechanics of what the author is arguing about state power and constitutional law.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the author makes this this historical connection early on that completely stops you in your tracks.
It's a really jarring historical reality.
Yeah. We were looking at the transition of power after independence, and the text points out this incredibly dark reality. The new government, the very people who fought a liberation war to free the country.
The liberators themselves.
Right. They kept using the oppressive colonial-era legislation to govern.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. The text specifically highlights two pieces of law, the Law and Order Maintenance Act and the Terrorism Act of 1967.
And that Terrorism Act is particularly heavy.
Yeah, the speaker explicitly notes that this Terrorism Act had its roots in apartheid South Africa, and it was used by Prime Minister Ian Smith against the liberation movements.
Against the very people who eventually took power.
Wait, let me just stop you there because my brain is struggling with this. Are you saying they literally dusted off apartheid-era laws?
Essentially, yes.
But how? How did the post-independence government justify keeping the exact same laws that were used to put them in jail?
Well, what's fascinating here is the profound institutional irony the source is bringing to light.
Irony is one word for it.
To understand how they justified it, you really have to look at the mechanics of statecraft versus the ideology of a revolution.
Okay, break that down for me.
A liberation struggle is built entirely on the promise of dismantling the apparatus of oppression.
Right. Tearing the whole bad system down.
But when that liberation movement actually takes control of the state, they suddenly face the immense, messy challenge of actually governing.
They actually have to run the country now.
Exactly. And the Law and Order Maintenance Act, or LOMA, wasn't just a generic rule book. It was a highly calibrated tool of control.
What did it actually let them do?
It allowed the state to ban public gatherings, completely control the press, and detain individuals indefinitely without a traditional trial.
Oh, wow. That is extreme.
Right. So from the perspective of a newly installed government trying to consolidate its authority in a very fragile post-conflict environment.
Those tools are probably terrifyingly efficient.
Precisely. They are very effective at keeping order, even if the cost is freedom.
I was trying to wrap my head around the psychology of that, and I just keep coming back to this analogy.
Oh, Let's hear it.
It's like fighting a bloody, exhausting revolution to take over a haunted house.
A haunted house. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, so you fought to free all the people trapped in the creepy dungeon in the basement, right?
Right, the liberation struggle.
But then, once you win and you finally take over the house, instead of filling in the dungeon and tearing down the iron doors, you just, change the locks.
You put the keys in your own pocket.
Exactly. You put the keys in your pocket and start using the dungeon yourself.
Yeah.
But doesn't that fundamentally break the trust of the citizens you just liberated?
It creates a massive crisis of cognitive dissonance.
I can imagine.
And the author of our source text argues that this dissonance is the root of the current political dysfunction.
So the ghosts of the old laws are still haunting the new system.
Very much so. The text emphasizes how these inherited laws were used to manage, quote, activities and movements.
Which is code for cracking down on people.
Exactly. It essentially criminalized modern political opposition under the guise of maintaining state security.
Just like the colonial government did to them.
Yes, the author points directly to how these colonial frameworks were weaponized against groups like the MDC.
So going back to the haunted house.
Using the master's tools to build a new house guarantees that the new house will eventually look exactly like the old one.
Man, that is bleak.
It is. The text traces a direct lineage from Loma to modern equivalent laws like the Public Order and Security Act.
Often referred to as POSA, right?
That's right. The names on the folders change, maybe the acronyms change, but the underlying mechanism remains entirely constant.
Using the legal system as a sword against dissent rather than a shield for the citizen.
Exactly.
So imagine you're a citizen. You're told you finally have independence.
Right, you're living in a free country.
But if you organize a political rally for the opposition, the police show up referencing a legal framework designed by Ian Smith.
It's incredibly disheartening.
The text paints this as a fundamental betrayal. The speaker seems to be arguing that you can never actually achieve a national reset if the operating system of the country is still running on colonial code.
And this raises a really important question about the nature of power itself.
Which is?
Once authority is centralized, does it ever voluntarily surrender its advantages?
History usually says no.
Right. The author suggests that the failure to completely dismantle that colonial legal framework set a toxic precedent.
It basically taught the new political elite that the law is just malleable.
Yes, that it exists to serve the executive branch rather than actually bind it.
So society is just stuck.
The text suggests society is left in a state of arrested development. The trauma of authoritarianism is continually reenacted, just with different actors on the stage.
But wait, according to the source material, there was a massive attempt to throw out that old haunted house blueprint entirely.
Yes, there was a major turning point.
The text heavily references the 2013 Democratic Constitution.
That was a huge moment.
The way the speaker frames it, this was supposed to be the watershed moment. This was the country finally writing its own rules from scratch.
The 2013 Constitution is positioned in the text as the ultimate potential reset.
It was designed to establish a functional, modern democratic government, right?
Exactly. And the text zeroes in on the most critical design feature of this document.
Which is what?
The strict separation of powers. The author explicitly lists the three arms of government: the executive, parliament, and the judiciary.
Let's break that down for a second, because we throw those terms around a lot in these deep dives.
It's good to clarify the basics.
So we're talking about Parliament writing the laws.
Right, the legislative branch.
Then the judiciary interpreting those laws and ensuring they are fair.
The courts and the judges.
And finally, the executive branch, which is the president and the cabinet, putting those laws into action.
Correct.
It's supposed to be a rock-solid triangle where no single side can overpower the others.
Precisely. That separation isn't just a bureaucratic suggestion.
No, it's the whole point.
It is the fundamental mechanism that prevents tyranny.
Right. So what happened?
Well, what the source text does is meticulously analyze the chasm between that beautiful written law and the ugly political reality.
Because it didn't last, did it?
According to the author, the promise of the 2013 Constitution was almost immediately shattered by an overreaching executive branch.
Just completely ignored the new rules.
The text describes a scenario where the executive began acting unilaterally, completely bypassing parliamentary oversight.
And ignoring judicial independence, too, I imagine.
Exactly.
The speaker uses some incredibly strong language here. I mean, essentially calling it a functional dictatorship.
The rhetoric is very sharp.
And they point to a very specific, very turbulent timeline to prove it. The text drops these markers, 1987, 1990, 2000, 2008, and the 2014 Party Congress.
Those are major pivot points.
I really want to dig into that because these aren't just random years, are they?
Not at all. They are critical stress tests of the nation's political fabric.
Okay, let's walk through them.
While the text doesn't give us a textbook definition of each year, in the context of Zimbabwean history, these dates represent moments of extreme political friction.
And power consolidation, right?
Exactly. Let's start with 1987. That marks the constitutional change that created an executive presidency.
What does that mean in practice?
It effectively merged the roles of head of state and head of government, so it massively centralized power into one office. Oh, I see. So it weakened the other pillars. What about 2000?
2000 was the year of a highly contested constitutional referendum.
Right, that was a huge deal globally.
Yes, and it was the beginning of the fast-track land reform, which brought immense economic and political upheaval to the country.
It totally reshaped the landscape. Then there's 2008.
2008 saw one of the most violent and disputed elections in the country's history.
That's when things really seemed to break down.
It did. It led to an unstable power-sharing government for a while.
And then the text mentions the 2014 Party Congress. What happened there?
That Congress was marked by severe internal purges within the ruling party itself.
So even the people inside the House weren't safe.
Exactly. The author is using this timeline to show a very clear pattern.
Whenever the ruling elite felt threatened, they just bypassed democratic norms to enforce their will.
Precisely. The rules only applied when they were convenient. And the text brings up a moment that is like the ultimate example of bypassing norms. It talks about the military stepping in to remove a leader because he was deemed a national threat.
That is a very complex moment in their history.
The speaker really wrestles with this event in the text. You can read the internal conflict in the transcript.
It's a huge legal gray area.
Yeah, the author is trying to figure out if this military action actually violated the brand new 2013 Constitution.
That internal debate is one of the most revealing parts of the source material.
How so?
Well, the text observes that the leader in question hadn't necessarily violated the strict letter of the Constitution.
Right, he was still legally the president.
However, the military, acting entirely outside of parliamentary channels or judicial processes, decided that the internal fractures were going to cause a national crisis.
Probably stemming from the fallout of that 2014 Party Congress we just talked about.
Very likely, yes. So the military inserted itself as the ultimate arbiter of political power.
But doesn't that completely destroy the concept of the three pillars?
It certainly undermines it entirely.
I mean, if the military can just step in when things get messy, then the Constitution isn't the highest authority in the land. The military is.
That is the logical conclusion, yes.
Imagine being a citizen watching this. You all agreed to this new rulebook in 2013. You think you're on a new path.
A democratic path.
Right. But the moment the game gets tight, the executive branch just calls in the military to change the score.
That is exactly the author's argument. When the military enforces institutional will, you no longer have a separation of powers.
What about the police? The text mentions them too.
Yes, when police are used to manage internal political disputes rather than enforce impartial laws, the system is broken.
You just have a state apparatus functioning to preserve the ruling party.
The text argues that this behavior delegitimizes the Constitution entirely. It turns it from a binding social contract into a mere piece of paper.
Okay, so we are deep in the weeds here. Constitutional failure, military intervention, the erosion of the state.
It is a lot of heavy theory.
And right at this moment in the transcript, there's a massive left turn.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to bring up.
I have to bring it up because it's just too weird to ignore. And honestly, I think it's the most brilliant accidental metaphor for everything we are talking about.
You are referring to the satellite internet anomaly?
Yes. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. You are reading this dense, heavy political theory.
Talking about the military and the judiciary.
And suddenly, out of nowhere, the transcript just breaks into what reads exactly like a commercial.
It is completely bizarre.
It starts pitching a way to bypass, quote, UK SIM cards and expensive monthly bills.
Right, using a pocket-sized device.
And satellite-free internet technology.
Yeah.
It just drops right in the middle of a sentence about oppression.
It is a jarring insertion. It's likely an automated ad that played during the original YouTube video and was just caught by the transcription software.
It specifically asks, since free internet technology already exists, why keep letting monthly bills hold you back?
It's so out of place.
Right. At first I was just going to skip it, but then it clicked.
You found a thematic link.
Think about what this glitch is actually selling. It is selling a literal piece of hardware designed to bypass a broken, expensive, monopolistic system.
Okay, I see where you're going.
You have these massive telecommunications companies controlling the ground infrastructure, holding all the power, and charging a fortune.
The traditional gatekeepers.
Exactly. And this little device offers a way to beam your signal straight to space, completely bypassing the gatekeepers on the ground.
I see the connection you are drawing here. You are mapping this technological workaround onto the political reality the author is describing.
Exactly. I mean, think about how perfectly that fits.
It does parallel the political situation.
The citizens are trapped in a political infrastructure that is just as monopolized and broken as a corrupt telecom network.
The traditional avenues for change are blocked.
Right. The parliament, the judiciary, the 2013 Constitution, they have all been jammed or dismantled by the executive branch.
The physical institutional ground is completely controlled.
So what do the people do? They look for a political satellite.
A new way to transmit their message.
They look for a way to bypass the dictatorial structure entirely.
It is a highly effective analogy, actually, because it speaks directly to the mechanics of modern civic resistance that are mentioned in the text.
How so?
Well, look at the environment we just analyzed. We have a state utilizing inherited colonial laws like POSA to criminalize physical gatherings.
So you can't protest in the street.
Right. The physical ground is hostile. So where does the political discourse go when the town square is outlawed?
It goes to the airwaves.
It goes online.
It beams up to space.
Precisely. Communication technology becomes the literal satellite, bypassing the restrictive laws of the land.
Wow. That's powerful.
Furthermore, this connects directly to the text's mention of the diaspora.
Oh, right, the people living outside the country.
Yes. The author explicitly notes that the diaspora has, quote, contributed immensely to the survival of the nation.
Because they aren't trapped by the ground infrastructure.
Exactly. The diaspora operates outside the physical geographic control of the state's security apparatus.
They are out of reach of POSA.
Yes. They utilize these very communication networks to send not just financial remittances, which are crucial, but information, coordination, and alternative political narratives.
They bypass the state's monopoly on truth.
It's a perfect parallel.
So this weird little glitch in the transcript is actually a profound symbol.
A happy accident for our analysis.
The citizens are trying to find a clear signal in an environment where the government is actively jamming the frequencies of democracy.
That's a great way to put it.
But here is the truly terrifying part. While the citizens are looking for workarounds, the government isn't just sitting back relying on those old colonial laws.
No, they're adapting too.
They realized the 2013 Constitution was inconvenient, so they decided to stop ignoring it and start legally erasing it.
And this transition from just ignoring the law to fundamentally altering the law brings us to the absolute core of the source material's argument.
The main event.
Yes, the climax of our analysis today, the progression of constitutional amendments.
Culminating in Bill 3.
Exactly.
Okay, so map this out for us.
Wow.
Because the text doesn't just jump straight to Bill 3.
No, it builds a very methodical case.
It traces a specific pattern of constitutional erosion, explicitly naming Amendment Number 1 and Amendment Number 2.
We have to look at those first to understand the panic over Bill 3.
So what actually happened in these amendments? Because the author makes it sound like a slow-motion demolition of the justice system.
It is a deliberate restructuring. To understand the alarm bells ringing in this text, we have to look at the mechanisms of these first two amendments.
Okay, where do we start?
Remember, the 2013 Constitution was praised specifically because it decentralized power.
It spread the power out so nobody could be a dictator.
Right. But Amendment 1 and Amendment 2 were targeted legislative strikes designed to reverse that decentralization.
Oh, I see.
The text argues that these amendments fundamentally altered how the judiciary operated and how the executive branch was run.
Let me jump in here. When you say altered how the judiciary operated, how exactly are we talking about how judges get their jobs?
Yes, exactly that. Under the original 2013 framework, the appointment of senior judges, like the Chief Justice, involved public interviews.
Like anyone could watch.
Yes, it was a rigorous, transparent selection process designed to ensure judicial independence.
So the president couldn't just hire his buddies.
Precisely. It was meant to insulate the courts from political favors.
Okay, so what did Amendment 1 do?
The passage of Constitutional Amendment Number 1 attacked this safeguard directly. It changed the rules to give the president the sole authority to appoint the Chief Justice
Wow.
and the Deputy Chief Justice and the Judge President of the High Court, completely bypassing that public interview process.
So the executive branch effectively gave itself the power to handpick the highest referees in the game without any oversight.
That is exactly what happened.
That is terrifying. If the referee works for the other team, you can't win.
And Amendment Now 2 went even further.
What else could they take?
It removed the running mate clause for presidential elections.
What was the point of that clause originally?
It was designed to ensure a clear democratic succession plan. Removing it consolidates more power in the current executive.
Okay, what else did Amendment 2 do?
It extended the retirement age for judges.
Let me guess. To keep the judges they handpicked on the bench longer.
That is exactly what critics argue. It's a mechanism to keep executive-friendly judges in power.
Incredible.
Furthermore, it diluted the power of Parliament to oversee international agreements signed by the executive.
So they took power from the courts, A&D from Parliament.
Yes.
It's not just a demolition then. It's a structural reinforcement of the executive branch.
They are hoarding the power.
They took out the load-bearing walls of the judiciary and Parliament and used the bricks to build a fortress around the presidency.
That's a very vivid, very accurate way to visualize it.
Which brings us to Constitutional Amendment Bill 3.
The breaking point.
Based on the trajectory laid out in this transcript, why is Bill 3 the existential threat? Why is the author screaming about a reset right now?
If you view Bill 3 through the historical context we've just unpacked,
The inheritance of colonial laws, the military interventions.
and the deliberate weakening of the judiciary through Amendments 1 and 2, Bill 3 ceases to be routine bureaucratic housekeeping.
It's a weapon.
The author frames it as the ultimate legal weaponization of the Constitution. If Amendments 1 and 2 wounded the separation of powers, Bill 3 is designed to deliver the fatal blow.
But what does that mean practically?
It means removing the final checks on executive authority.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. If the government holds a majority in Parliament and they vote to change the Constitution according to the rules of Parliament, isn't that technically legal?
That is the core dilemma.
I have to ask this because I know people listening are wondering, if the people in power can just rewrite the rules whenever those rules restrict them, is the Constitution just a glorified suggestion box?
That is the most dangerous paradox of any democracy, and it is the exact crisis the source text is trying to force its audience to confront.
It hurts my head to think about.
You are highlighting the massive difference between legality and legitimacy.
Wait, break that down. Legal versus legitimate. I thought they were the same thing.
Not always. A government can use its parliamentary majority, often achieved through intense party whipping or, frankly, compromised electoral processes, to pass a constitutional amendment.
Right, they have the votes on paper.
Yes. By the strict letter of the parliamentary process, it is legal.
Okay, so where does legitimacy come in?
However, if that amendment destroys the foundational principles of the Constitution itself specifically, that separation of powers agreed upon by the citizens in 2013, it loses its democratic legitimacy.
So they follow the rules to destroy the rules.
The author of the text is arguing that you cannot use the Constitution to destroy the Constitution.
It's like using the rules of chess to pass a new rule that says your king is allowed to flip the board over whenever he's in check.
That is a very apt analogy.
I mean, sure, you wrote it in the rule book, but you're not playing chess anymore.
Exactly. The text suggests that Bill 3 represents the executive branch writing itself a blank check for absolute authority.
Just flipping the board over.
It removes the final checks and balances. The author is sounding the alarm because once Bill 3 is enacted, the executive is no longer constrained by the law.
Because they are the law.
Yes. The executive is the law. And this is why the text is not calling for a new political party or a simple election cycle.
They need something bigger.
It is calling for a total systemic reset.
Because you can't fix a house when the foundation has been secretly replaced with quicksand.
You have to start over.
But while all this high-level legal maneuvering is happening in Parliament, what is happening to the actual people?
The citizens bearing the brunt of it.
Right, because the text doesn't just stay in the clouds of constitutional theory. It brings us crashing down to the voices on the ground. And it paints a pretty grim picture of the human cost.
It really does. The source text anchors this massive political theory. in very real human suffering.
It talks about the working class, right?
Yes, it explicitly references the struggles of the working class and uses the word exploitation to describe the current economic environment.
Exploitation is a strong word.
We are looking at a system where the economy is failing the average citizen, while wealth and power are intensely consolidated at the absolute top.
It's a rigged game. And the text mentions a specific name here, too. Comrade Victor Matamandanda.
Yes.
Who is that, and why does the author bring him up in this context?
Victor Matamandanda is a prominent political figure. He was formerly a powerful leader within the War Veterans Association and a high-ranking official within the ruling party. The author's inclusion of his name is significant because it brings these abstract constitutional struggles down to the level of real political actors.
It shows the internal drama.
Yes, the internal party friction and the historical legacy of the liberation struggle.
Why are the war veterans important here?
The war veterans historically held immense sway in Zimbabwean politics. They often acted as enforcers for the state, but also occasionally clashed with the executive when they felt sidelined.
So they aren't always in lockstep with the present.
Right. By invoking figures like Matamandanda, the text highlights the complex, often fractured internal dynamics of the state apparatus itself.
Is that a monolith?
No, it suggests that the consolidation of power isn't just harming the opposition, it's creating deep instability within the ruling class too.
And the text also swings back to the diaspora here. We talked about them earlier as the satellite bypassing the system.
The technological workaround, yes.
But the author makes a deeply poignant point about their reality. It says they keep the country afloat.
Through remittances, mostly.
Right, sending money back home to families who are dealing with this exploitation. But the text says they are entirely disconnected from the political process.
They have no voice.
They are economically vital, but politically invisible.
It's a tragic irony. If we synthesize all these elements, the exploited working class, the targeted opposition, the exiled diaspora, the internal party friction.
It's a powder keg.
The author is describing a society living in a state of agonizing suspended animation.
Suspended animation. That's a good way to put it.
The constant deployment of state security, those ghosts of colonial laws we discussed, creates an atmosphere of pervasive, exhausting fear.
You can't build anything in that environment.
No, you cannot build a functional economy or a vibrant culture when the primary objective of the state is its own self-preservation at the expense of its people.
Just survival mode for everyone.
The emotional toll of knowing your constitution is being systematically erased is immeasurable.
The speaker paints this as a profoundly bleak reality. Imagine waking up every day knowing that the laws are rigged, the referees work for the opposing team.
And you can't even complain.
Right, if you complain, you get hit with a law written by the regime your grandparents fought a war to defeat. It is heavy.
It's a suffocating reality.
But we promised at the beginning of this deep dive that we would find the hope.
And there is hope in the text.
The source material demands it. The title itself is Miono ya Reset Zimbabwe, the vision of a reset.
The vision is the key part.
So what is the cure the author is prescribing?
The hope in this text is incredibly specific. It isn't a vague wish for kinder politicians or better weather.
It's not just thoughts and prayers.
Exactly. The author explicitly argues that the only way forward, the absolute core of this reset, is a return to the foundational basics.
Yashar.
A strict, unyielding respect for the separation of powers.
The text states it unequivocally. The executive, parliament, and judiciary must not interfere with one another.
It sounds so simple.
It really does. Just follow the basic rules of civics. But based on everything we've just spent the last hour unpacking, how monumental of a shift is that in reality?
It would be a seismic shift.
What does this reset actually look like? Are we
Right.
talking about a violent revolution, people taking to the streets?
What's truly fascinating is that the text does not explicitly call for violence or a bloody overthrow.
It doesn't.
No. The reset envisioned here appears to be a massive institutional awakening.
An institutional awakening, what does that mean?
It is a collective societal realization that the current trajectory of legal erasure leads only to collapse.
People just waking up and saying, enough.
Yes. The true hope lies in the profound clarity demonstrated by the text itself.
The fact that someone wrote this down and understands it so well.
Exactly. The author and the audience resonating with this message are hyper-aware of the mechanics of their own oppression.
They aren't being fooled.
Right. They know exactly how the system was rigged.
That is such a vital point. You cannot fix a machine until you know exactly which gears have been removed.
That's a great metaphor.
If the government had managed to pass Amendments 1 and 2 in the dark, or if they'd used the colonial laws without the citizens noticing the hypocrisy, it would be a hopeless situation.
Because the people wouldn't know what was stolen from them.
But the text proves that the people see it. They see the quicksand.
Precisely. And ironically, Bill 3 makes the broken gears more visible than ever.
How so?
By pushing constitutional amendments so aggressively, by so blatantly attempting to consolidate absolute executive power, the ruling elite has overplayed its hand.
They got too greedy.
Yes, they have clarified the stakes for every single citizen. The call for a reset is a demand to return to the original promise of the 2013 Constitution.
The original contract.
It is a demand for the institutions to remember their fundamental purpose.
Parliament must legislate independently.
Yes. The judiciary must judge impartially without fear of executive reprisal.
And the executive must just execute the laws, not write them.
That is the reset.
So the hope isn't found in some new magical law. It's found in the clarity of the vision.
The awareness itself is the weapon.
It's the collective refusal to accept the new normal of eroded rights. It's the citizens standing up and saying, no, we know exactly what a democracy looks like. We signed the contract in 2013, and we demand that it be restored.
It's an uncompromising insistence on accountability.
And that collective memory, the stark awareness of what was promised versus what is being delivered, is an incredibly potent political force.
Something the state cannot easily erase.
The ghosts of colonial laws might still be haunting the halls of Parliament, but this transcript proves that the citizens are no longer afraid of the dark.
They see right through it.
They hold the original blueprints, they have the architectural plans for the reset.
The only remaining question is whether they can generate the unified political will to force the state back into its constitutional boundaries.
Man, that is the million-dollar question. So what does this all mean? We have covered a massive expanse of history and legal theory today.
We really have.
Let's trace the arc of this deep dive one last time. We started by looking at the terrifying inheritance of colonial tools.
The haunted house.
Right, how laws like the Law and Order Maintenance Act were kept alive just to stifle modern opposition.
The betrayal of the liberation.
Yeah. Then we watched the beautiful theoretical promise of the 2013 Constitution get systematically bypassed by an executive branch willing to use the military to enforce its will.
The breakdown of the pillars.
And then we found that bizarre satellite internet glitch and realized it was the perfect metaphor for a jammed society looking for a way to bypass a monopolized system.
The diaspora beaming the truth back home.
Exactly. And finally, we used all that history to decode the mechanics of legal erasure. We saw how Amendments 1 and 2 crippled the judiciary and Parliament, setting the stage for Bill 3 to completely dismantle the separation of powers.
The final blow.
But through it all, we found the author's uncompromising vision for a reset. A demand to return to those three independent pillars of democracy.
It's a powerful vision. As we conclude this analysis, this leaves us with a final, lingering question to ponder.
What's the takeaway?
Well, it's one that reaches far beyond the borders of Zimbabwe. We have spent this entire session discussing the rules written on paper. But if a nation's foundational laws, its very constitution, can be legally amended by a ruling party to completely bypass democracy itself, where does the true power of a democratic reset actually lie?
Oh, wow.
Is it contained in the ink on the paper? Or does it exist solely in the collective, unwavering refusal of the citizens to be governed by the ghosts of the past?
The ink on the paper versus the collective will of the people. That is the ultimate test of any democracy.
It really is.
We are going to leave you to mull that one over. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly complex, vital journey today.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We love digging into these dense, difficult texts with you. Keep asking the tough questions, keep looking for the underlying mechanics of how things work, and always keep seeking out the bigger picture.